Assalamu alaikum, Faisal here. So, welcome to the next session, and this session is all about your why. So, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to start with why again. Then we're going to find your why. Then we'll give you some examples of some good why statements, and then some case studies of strong whys. So, let's get into it. So, start with why. Only the wise know their whys. So I know that we just covered some of this stuff right at the very start of this program, but now is the time because we've got a lot of the data that we've been diving for. We can go into this in more detail because the why it signals what the mission will be, or it's an indicator as to your mission. So we need to dive deeper into this stuff now. I want to start off with this video.
Probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, but very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? And why should anyone care? The inspired leaders and the inspired organizations all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. If you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. The first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. But if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration. So it's this here, this little gap that you have to close. Because you see, the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. And these guys, the innovators and the early adopters, they're more comfortable making those intuitive decisions that are driven by what they believe about the world and not just what product is available. These are the people who stood online for 6 hours to buy an iPhone when they first came out. Leaders hold a position of power or authority, but those who lead inspire us. And it's those who start with why that have the ability to inspire those around them or find others who inspire them. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's actually an 18-minute TED Talk. It's probably one of the most popular TED Talks of all time, but that's been summarized into like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes or something. So by that, you should hopefully get the idea of what that's all about. So just to reiterate, starting with why, means that why is at the center of everything that you do. So it's the purpose. And obviously this is done with businesses, but it's also can be done for the individual as well. So the why is the purpose, the cause, what do you believe? So for Apple, we believe in challenging the status quo, doing things differently. How is the process and what you actually do? So anyway, we're focusing on why. So that's just his model called the golden circle. So by now, with everything that you've done up to now, all the exercises and activities, you should be getting closer and closer to what your mission should be. If you don't know exactly, you should be at least in the right ballpark now because some ideas, some thoughts will have been coming to your mind. So now it's time to translate and decode all that data into something tangible. So all of this work that we're doing now, it should make sense in the next framework, which I'll introduce next time. Much of what we're doing is to align who you are and what you stand for at your essence with what you eventually do. There was an interesting study that followed 136,000 people for about 7 years, and it came to a really interesting conclusion. It said that those people who have a strong sense of why actually have a lower risk of death. Right? So it's interesting, obviously, how they work out these things. But what they're saying is that mortality was 20% lower for participants reporting a strong sense of why. So, I mean, this report is called The Purpose of Life and its relationship. And also, we know that life and death, someone life, etc. But what this is corresponding to is that they've got more to live for, and they feel happier, and they feel that driven by something, etc. So it was just an interesting stat I thought I'd add. So if you're feeling, oh, why am I doing this, or I don't want to work on the why, well, there you go. That's the reason right there. Um, so obviously, to go back to the video, Simon Sinek is talking about business, but it's very transferable. And so what you can do, to get the blood flowing to the brain and to get the juices flowing, is in the first session. We did this exercise where I said, okay, why are you here? Why are you on this program? Do you use the 5 why technique, etc. So maybe you can revisit it when you're going through this today's session. So at the heart of it, we only have one why, right? When we dig deep enough, there's only one cause that stands out, that sticks out, that we believe in so intently that we will do anything for it, right? And so our why, once it's defined, essentially becomes our mission and what we must dedicate our lives to. So because this is the stage of the program where we're now working at our mission, the way we're going to do that is through figuring out our real why. So the idea behind the golden circle, as I mentioned, is to figure out your unique mission. And so that means that the only person who could truly answer this is you. So we have to ask ourselves, why were you put on this earth? Why have you been given the skills and the experiences that you've gone through? And so once we start with this part, then all the rest of it we can start filling in the rest of it. How are you going to do it, and what does it look like, manifested, etc. But how are you going to monetize it? All of that stuff will become clear. But that's why in this section we have to look at translating all of the thoughts, all the ideas that these past few sessions have brought out into something now tangible. What you'll find is that if you can go deep into the depth of your soul and understand your own personal why, it'll give you belief, motivation, energy. Other people will buy into you and trust you because you have such conviction and clarity in what you believe. Remember, we talked about you being the purposeful pioneer, and the way they see the world. They've got so much energy and enthusiasm and passion and all of these things. It becomes because they're truly aligned with their why. So finding your why. So how are we going to find this? How do we discover our why? So how a company comes up with it. So I've helped a lot of companies with coming up with this stuff. It usually comes down to the origin story of the company. So why did the founder create it in the first place? What was the driving force? What was the motivation? What were the problems that he saw in the world that compelled him to act? So because usually when you revisit that part, that is driven from a sense of authenticity. And so often when companies are trying to work this stuff out, it's because they've drifted from that original founder mission that they had. That's why startups can move fast and disrupt and things like that, because they're very close to their why, because they've just started out. But as they become older and more people join, and you lose that intensity of the why. So obviously, right now you may not have an origin story or anything like that, but the good thing is that you already have kind of done the heavy lifting with all these exercises. So you've got plenty of food for thoughts flushing around in your minds to be able to do this part really well. So according to Simon Sinek, there's three elements required to be able to understand your deepest, truest why. So the first aspect, again, which we've done, go through your own life story. So what are the most richest, most significant experiences? Which of these seem really significant to you and seem to repeat themselves over and over again? And remember, it's all about specific stories. So no, it's not like, oh, when I was 12, I fell off my bike once. Like, it's more like, like what thing actually happened and how did it shape your worldview? How did it completely change your life, or why do you still remember it to this day? So that's the first part of it. So, for example, for me, I told you the not fulfilling my potential story. When I learned in year nine, year 10, when I came out of Pakistan, that, oh, I didn't actually have to work that hard. I could just cruise through exams, and I started to believe my own hype. So that was quite a big thing. Oh, no, I didn't fulfill my potential. And cruising through school. I also told you the whole unity story that, my friends, family, we were quite divided, a lot of sectarianism. So I always questioned it. I always never understood why that was. And then I told you the South Africa story and going there and seeing Islam as this, force for good and how it can be used to elevate and empower, as opposed to the rituals and routines is all I had, kind of my understanding of it. I also told you about the specialist and generalist story, where my managers would always say, "Oh, we should show some passion," and they always stressed me to specialize in something. So you can see these three or four key aspects in my past have then all come together now and shaped what not only the way I view the world, but then also now what I do. The next part of this is, after the specific stories that you select, is you then identify some core themes that really stand out. So look for the insights these nuggets give you about your outlook on life. So again, for me, the fulfilling potential thing, I realized, oh no, you have to work hard, and you have to achieve your potential. Otherwise, you feel really bad and you regret things, etc. Again, the unity stories are with this power and unity, and it doesn't make sense to be divided. So these are all kind of things that are themes from my thing, and then Islam being an elevating force. So it's like, okay, so hang on, Islam is an elevating force. It Islam is there to unify people, and Islam allows you to achieve your potential. So you can see all these themes now then start shaping into something. So then we have the next one. So this part is vital. As you reflect through all the data, some nuggets will shine brightly, some stories will represent you more than the others. So yeah, again, I've got so many different experiences, so many different things I've done, but these are the ones that kind of shine the strongest. And here's the good news. Okay, you know that we've already done this work, and so you've got an entire bank of data to use. So you're actually ready for the third and final stage of figuring out your why. Draft and refine your why statement. So this is essentially all of that work, all of that data in one sentence. How? There you go. Two, so that. Two, so that. Two, and your contribution. So that this happens. So let me obviously give you some examples of this to help. So your white statement, it should be very simple and clear. First of all, it should be very actionable. It should be focused on how you contribute to others, and expressed in affirmative language that resonates with you. And so your why statement should be able to encapsulate all of you, and it should be able to do so in a single sentence. It should also be evergreen, meaning that it should be applicable to everything you do, both personally and professionally, without separation. So it should represent who you are. To give you an example, I've got a friend who, he's got a big business, factory and stuff, and so who his true essence is, he has a different side to him that he can't fully put out there because or he's worried about the impact of his business, right? So he feels misaligned. Often feels misaligned, and he's not really representing his true self. So what sometimes he does, he goes, "Oh, I'm gonna do my passion project, anonymously or something like that." Um, but the truth of it is that you're always going to feel conflicted. If you, the way this should work is, you know, there's not a personal why or a profession and a professional why. There's only one why, right? So this should represent exactly who you are, because your contribution is not a product or a service. It's a thing around which everything you do. It means your why drives the decisions that you make, the values and principles that you hold, the tasks you perform, the products you sell. It all aligns to bring about the impact that you envision. Why do you do what you do? It drives and aligns everything. So you can't have two whys. So Simon Sinek, the guy who created that video, to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so that together we can change the world. So you can see, to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. That's the contribution. So that together we can change the world. Impact. So to empower the next generation of Muslim thinkers, scientists, and creatives to find their purpose, fulfill their potential to have more impact in the world. That's kind of my one. So my other company, Muslim CEO, CEOs drive progress by solving the world's problems. We believe Muslims are best equipped to lead that drive. So you can see the language is slightly different. It's not, we haven't got the so and to and so that, but this one is just explaining why in a different way. What CEOs do is they drive progress by solving the world's problems, and obviously our belief is that Muslims are best equipped to do that. So that's our why. That's why we're doing, pushing out, business in that sense. To inspire human creativity by enabling 1 million artists to live off their art and 1 billion people to enjoy it and be inspired by it. So that's Spotify's. Airbnb, to connect millions of people in real life all over the world through a community marketplace, so that you can belong anywhere. So you can see how some of this works. So I'm going to now give you some case studies of real life people, and the kind of backstories and about their lives, so you can see how that then led to their life mission. So the first one we'll start off with Abdul Star Edi of ED Foundation. So he's a philanthropist and obviously the founder of the ED Foundation. He was born in 1928, died in 2016. So in terms of who the ED Foundation are, they're funded entirely by donations. They're a Pakistani charity, I think one of the biggest in Pakistan. And they offer full services irrespective of ethnicity, religion, or status. It runs the world's largest volunteer ambulance service and offers 24-hour emergency services. It also operates free nursing home, orphanages, clinics, women's shelters, and rehabilitation centers for drug addicts and the mentally ill. Right, so that's what they do. But this is what it was driven by. So when Edie was 11, his mother became paralyzed and later became mentally ill. So he devoted himself to looking after all her needs: cleaning, bathing, changing clothes, and feeding. Her illness and deteriorating condition left a lasting impression. So his studies were also affected and he could not complete school. So his mum died when he was 19. And so his personal experience made him think of millions suffering like his mother, around with nobody to look after them. He thought that he had a call to help these people. He had a vision of chains of welfare centres and hospitals that could be opened to alleviate the pain of those suffering from illnesses and neglect. He also thought of the inhuman treatment that was given out to the mentally ill, the insane, and disabled. Obviously, his mother kind of went through that as well, and he saw how she was treated. So even at an early age, he felt personally responsible for taking on the challenge of developing a system of services to reduce human misery. And he was also famous for shunning the limelight. He never took a single salary, and he only owned 2 pairs of clothes. But you can see that what he went on to do in terms of this, so he dedicated his entire life to building this foundation that is doing such amazing work, even after his death. It was all driven by his experience of looking after his paralyzed mom. So That's Abdul Sahidi. Then we have another Abdul Sattar, which is Dr. Hussein Abdul Sattar of Pathoma. So he's born and bred in Chicago. He's an assistant professor of pathology at the University of Chicago, and he serves as a full-time academic surgical pathologist, and he's also a Islamic scholar with a specialty and ijaza in tasawwuf. Right. So midway through his studies in the 90s, he went to study Arabic and Islamic studies in Pakistan at the feet of a famous scholar. Right. And he said it was the most transformative experience of his life, largely due to his passionate teacher, um, who lectured as though there were 3,000 people in the room, but even though there were only five or six. But he says that the most impressive thing and the most important thing that I took away from him was that he was able to distill huge quantities of material in a very easy to understand way, right? Just and stories and analogies and diagrams and methods. So you just came away retaining all this extremely complicated information. So I even quoted, he said that he had this ability to take vast amounts of information and summarize it in the most eloquent, simple, principle-based method. So after 2.5 years abroad, he returned to Chicago to start his final year of medical school, and he was worried that he'd forgotten everything he knew about medicine. So each night he focused on what he needed to understand to get through the next day. He began to realize he'd been memorizing details but missing the big picture. But this is where the experience and the transformative experience that he had with the scholar helped, because he realized, oh, hang on, I just need to apply his method. This whole method of don't need to memorize, just bring it back to basics, simplicity and stuff. That so then he obviously became a surgeon, but then later on, as he started practicing, he became a teacher. So he started lecturing as well, and then what he realized, like, when I was going through this stuff, the resources that are available to me, the textbooks, and it's so boring, it's so like convoluted, it's really like long-winded. So there must be a better way. And again, he still kept remembering the way his own teacher taught him in Pakistan. So he said that that is what I should do. I should break down this really complex, boring subject in a way that's very easy to understand. And so that's what he did. So again, so instead of boring, difficult explanations, he wrote down the complexity into simple examples. And 20 years later, he launched Pathoma, which is a textbook and a course. And it's been viewed millions and millions of times, basically to the point where it's a number one resource now in the US. And basically, college students in the US like swear by it. They say that this is a must needed resource. So now today, what thousands of medical students say about this of the star. He has a remarkable gift for clarity. He can take the pathophysiology of any organ system and present the information in a way that makes the entire mechanism click in your head. Right? There was even a quote I read where even a stick figure is considered too complex for him. Right? So that's how basic he made the information, so it just sticks. Now, what he read, so again, what his why, not necessarily, it's how changing medical education and making he's impacting a whole new generation of doctors and pathologists, with in a way that it will transform their understanding, their experience, and impact patients for years. So again, he's taken his own personal pain, and that became his entire mission. So not everyone has to be a scholar or a big name. This is Adam Khan. He's got a fitness company called Khan Fitness, and he's founder of a program called the Fit Dad Life Mastery Program, aimed at helping professional desi dads to lose 20 to 30 kg in 3 months, feel better than ever, and level up in life. His why story is really interesting because it's driven by three core experiences. So at the age of 15, he fell severely ill with tuberculosis, which ended up lasting 5 years before it got diagnosed. So in that time, he became housebound and eventually bedbound, unable to feed and dress himself. So think about how traumatic that experience would have been. At the age of 10, his dad had his first heart attack, then a series of strokes in the years to follow. 3 days before his wedding, his dad passed away to poor health. So again, another massive amount of trauma. And he had a 10-year battle with his own health, which he finally managed to resolve using a more minimalist method to what everyone else in the industry was pushing. So obviously he tried loads of different things, and he realized the only thing that worked for him, um, was something else. So now he's got a team of coaches all implementing his method for him, and a client list of well over 200 success stories. So this is now his lifelong mission, and is determined to solve the health and obesity crisis of the Ummah. So again, you can see because of his own traumas and issues and events in his life, that led to health is the key to to my mission. I need to fix that in some way, right? And so that's what it kind of became for him. So next we have Dr. Hawa Abdi. So she passed away in 2020, but she was a Somali human rights activist, a doctor, a lawyer, and the founder and chairperson of her own non-profit organization. So again, quite a lot of trauma in her past. So at the age of 12, she witnessed her mother's death during childbirth. So it forced her to grow up fast and take care of her sisters, and inspired her to become a doctor to save other mothers. Shortly after her mother's death, she entered into a forced marriage with a significantly older man. So she became pregnant. So at the age of 7, she had undergone a female genital cutting ritual. So I think it was probably a cultural thing that they did over there. Now, it seriously compromised the birth, and so this resulted in her baby's death a few months later. And then, as a result of that and the fallout, the husband divorced her. So then she went to continue her education. She got a scholarship to study medicine in Russia. And then she went and did lots of other things in the interim. So when civil war broke out, Somalia eventually collapsed and became famine-stricken and ungoverned. So she had a large area of farmland of 1,300 acres, so which was a safe zone. So so basically she fed and cared for the injured, the sick, the malnourished, and and then 20 years on, that farmland is still a refugee camp which shelters approximately 90,000 people, mostly women and children of all tribes, and the clinic has become a free of charge hospital. She also started a student school, 850 strong students school, and also an education centre as well. And she's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2012. She's also described as equal parts Mother Teresa and Rambo. Rambo because she's fierce in trying to help her people, and then obviously Mother Teresa because how she's cared for the sick and the poor and the so and then there's been lots of and then there's a story where I think she was her property was taken over and she was arrested, but she still stood tall, and that's why she learned law to counter all this injustice and stuff. So again, someone very driven, but again, her own backstory has contributed to her why and her mission. So now Dr. Malik Badri. So he again just recently passed away in 2021. So he was born in 1982. He's considered the father of modern Islamic psychology. Right. So he trained as a psychologist in the UK after completing his studies in Sudan, where he's from. And he's an accomplished author. He's elected as a fellow of the British Psychological Society. Now, what he felt was that everything that we're being taught in the way we're being taught psychology, it's extremely Western. It's like staunchly secular. It's completely taking God out of the equation. And obviously, with the study of psychology, the study of the self, you can't take God out of the equation of such a important thing, right? So initially he kind of rallied against it, and he was kind of shunned by fellow Muslim psychologists. Oh, if you try and mix religion with science, you'll never be successful. Don't bring that stuff in here, etc. But it just didn't sit right with him. He says that we're pushing Freud and all of these different things when we've got our own culture and heritage in this. So he published his famous paper, Muslim Psychologists in the Lizard Hole, and then a follow-up book, which was The Dilemma of Muslim Psychologists in 1979. He realized that the current predicament of the Muslim world is because we've forgotten our rich heritage of science, philosophy, and education and spirituality, and we've blindly adopted ways that will severely fracture our relationship with the divine and bring about great harm to us in the world. And then, even though he worked in academia, he started championing Islamic psychology after rediscovering Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, a Golden Age scholar, and his work Sustenance of the Soul, and then others. So then he was like, look, you know what, we have to have Islamic psychology as a movement, as a branch. And so, although he was laughed at by other Muslims and told to ease up, and that he would never be accepted by the West, they were actually wrong and he was right, because despite all that, he was very, very highly respected. He was often sought out for speeches, and you know, he was given that kind of title, accepted as the father of Islamic psychology and the person who put the soul back into psychology. So again, you can see in his field, you know, these things that he saw that impacted him, and he felt that something was wrong. I've got to put it right. I've got to do my duty in this field, and pave the way for all the psychologists Muslim psychologists that come after him. I mean, there's an interesting anecdote and a story that I read. There's a Christian psychologist, and who was, I think it might have been a chaplain, or he might have been working with predominantly Muslim patients, and like even the Christian mentioned that I use Islamic techniques, that I obviously learned on my patients, even though other Muslims weren't using it at the time, because he said that it worked. Even though I don't believe in Islam, etc., I can see that it works better for my patients. And so I remember, I just remember it being an interesting anecdote when I was reading into a story, um, about what others were doing as opposed to versus what the Muslim psyche was at the time. So then another case study you may have heard of, Sal Khan at Khan Academy. So he's a busy hedge fund manager based in California. In 2004, his niece Nadia was struggling in maths. She was based in Boston, so he started tutoring her online, and she started doing well. Eventually, some other platforms, some of the family members wanted tutoring, so he decided to put the videos on this new platform called YouTube. This really took off and eventually amassed millions of views from all around the world. His style of teaching was good and explained tough subjects in a very simple way. I mean, at that time, YouTube had a limit of 10-minute videos, so I think that really helped as well. So it forced him to be concise and explain, get to the point. He did this part-time in addition to the hedge fund job, which gave him money and status. But it was actually him reading one comment on one of the videos that changed things hugely for him. Every night, my family and I pray for you and your family. It was from some random stranger he'd never heard of or never met before. So he just thought, wow, the work I'm doing, as just a side thing, it really is helping people, it's impacting people. And he goes, that one sentence, it caused him just to question everything that he's doing in his hedge fund job. It made him realize the education thing was the thing that he was here for, his real mission, and because that's something that had real impact on people. So he quit his job in 2009, and he made it his mission to provide anyone in the world with a free education forever. And it's developed from online to physical schools, and he's basically one of the leaders in this space. So he's shaping the future of education, going forward, inshallah. And then final case study I've got is YPur who's a business partner at Muslim CEO. He's the founder of Muslim Mastery as well. Now, what Muslim Mastery do is it helps Muslims to achieve mindset breakthroughs, and in particular, they help Muslims with their confidence and communication, so they can inspire, influence, and impact the world. So his objective and why is centered around creating more and more Muslim leaders. So in terms of his background, his past, he worked at Xerox as a salesperson and then a project manager. He volunteered for 5 years at the Muslim Youth Helpline, and before being the first Amir of Al Maghrib, UK. He was then headhunted to launch IERA, where he set it up and worked as operations manager for 5 years. And he's focused now on work at Muslim Mastery and Muslim CEO. But there were three core realizations in his life at certain points. First of all, when he was younger and his teens, he went to school in Pakistan for a year, and he went there obviously quite arrogantly. I'm gonna, obviously pass everything, and he failed. He failed everything except English, I think, and it was a bit of a wake up call. Oh my God, I, like I don't really know. Like I think he thought he would pass everything, and what that did was I realized, oh, I've got to work, and um, I need to figure this stuff out. The second thing, no, the main thing about Pakistan was it made him realize I can't take things for granted. You have to actually work and study hard to be successful. The second thing was he was extremely scared of public speaking. He had very low confidence, and he gives a couple of examples when he was at university. He would do all the group activities that required speaking presenting to the class. He would actually do all the work for his team members as long as someone else takes over the speaking. So again, and then when he was even when he was given the Amir role at Maghrib, he basically said, "I'll do it as long as I don't have to do any public speaking." And obviously they said that, "Look, that's not possible. You have to be the guy at the front." So it just forced him, in being in that position, forced him to overcome his deepest, darkest fears. And he realized that this is holding me back from any opportunities, and so I've got to figure out how to get over this. And then also he was. Another thing was being in the corporate world and seeing colleagues obsess around money and thinking that he was in the wrong place and that he was made for more than this work. Because he just said, "Oh, all the talk about money, 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 money," and that's what made him question his purpose. Because he said, "Look, didn't you?" He asked Allah, like, "Didn't you create me for more than this?" What's and then from there, that's kind of what opened the doors to IERA and all these other opportunities that came his way. So this is a good example of someone actually living on his purpose, because what he did was, again, he took the world-class training that Xerox had provided him, he applied it to successfully developing Muslim leaders at IERA, and then he went and set up on his own eventually. But what the main thing he does now, like I said, is help people with their confidence and communication, because he says that that's the first rung towards leadership. People can't take you seriously as a leader if you don't have that confidence and ability to influence. So that's the first part, and then he's got other areas, because mindset and all these things are so important. So he's gone through all this, this huge journey himself, and that's what really has concreted his own why going forward. So the action items for this session are to finalize your white statement. Obviously, we can tweak it and stuff later, but we need to get the first draft down at the very least. So the worksheet will explain more. I'll give you some more examples in that of why statements. Because I've given you here are the stories behind a lot of this stuff. But in terms of how it looks, you'll be able to see it on the worksheet. So I'm going to end with this: people lose their way when they lose their why. That was by Michael Hyatt. So you can see that why is critical, because it's your signpost for whatever your mission is going to be. So that's it for this one. It's an important one. So I will leave you to do your why statements, and I'll see you on the next one, inshallah.